It's very good to find a community.
Or if you don't have one, create one, like we did.
Hi all, welcome to Mull To None.
The podcast.
Our topic today is on the 5 tips for getting into cEDH. These are very useful tips.
No?
No, they're not useful tips.
Bad.
These are hampering advice.
This is
Go against it.
This is actively going to worsen your cEDH career.
So anyway, on that topic of great tips for cEDH.
Do not proxy cards ever.
Proxying cards is great because there's a bit of a...
If you're a terrible player.
If we're in and I am a terrible player. So our first tip, proxying.
Proxying, 100%.
It's so integral.
Yes.
There's a bit of a accessibility hypocrisy in cEDH because we're playing with all these powerful cards. And all these powerful cards aren't exactly cheap or easy to find.
Or available most of the time, yeah.
We're a bit of a proxy-friendly meta. If you'll notice, if you review some of those spell table games, those tournament games, they're all proxy-friendly.
To get an entire deck printed in colour at Officeworks, no, on paper, it's like $4 for full colour.
It's crazy.
So much cheaper than $7,000 for buying dual lands.
Some of those 5-color decks, they can get pretty up there.
Yeah.
Just from the land base, and you're like, oh, that's fetches, and then some of those like city traders, even if you wanted to bling out your deck as well, that kind of just adds another 100 times up.
Oh my word.
Oh.
Yes. Ugh. Like getting the specific printing of Force of Will or the masterpieces and stuff. It's
a funny thing to zoom in on because all these cards are so hard to get, and then we've just made them so easy. That just makes proxying worth it, you know?
Yes.
Because I don't think I'm ever really going to own Mishra's Workshop.
Mishra's Workshop, yeah. Oh,
but
my word.
I have printed out a couple, and I'm yet to actually put them in any deck.
Oh, really?
Oswald would make sense, but given the kind of how I'm feeling about proxying on that deck, just to keep it tournament legal for some of those non-proxy events, I don't think I could afford it.
No.
Yeah, it's a bit
I mean,
expensive.
my Yuriko deck, the only card left to unproxy is Underground Sea, and that's taken me a lot of time to get there, and that's because I made a thing of going after it so that I had one. But the rest of them, it's like, no, proxy it up because I want to actually, I want to play.
Because some tournaments themselves, they're not exactly proxy friendly, but there's also the whole like collecting aspect to unproxy a deck, but you should always start with proxying a deck to begin with, because a working car on a racetrack is better than sitting at home. Start practicing, whenever.
One of the good ways that I like to look at it is cEDH is a format in particular where you're playing against the person and their deck building skills and their piloting skills. You're not playing against their wallet and what cards they can afford and what cards you can afford. And if someone's got a better paying job, then they're just going to do better in the format, that's not in the spirit of
it's
cEDH.
That barrier to entry, if that's too high. Realistically speaking, we want the most games possible.
And varying the games as well. It's like, oh, cool, I'm going to invest all this money in one deck. It's like, cool, then you get to play one deck for the next however long until you can afford to build another one.
I've visited Officeworks far too many times, as you know, due to all those different boulders I have. Ultimate Guard, please sponsor.
Yep. Thank you, please. Yes. There's a USB down there that I threw out of my pocket before. It has a new deck on it that I want to try out. And there's plenty of different websites and stuff that you can get the proxies done at. Like we use MTG Print. We'll put the link in the description.
There's a whole bunch of other various websites themselves that I'm sure can take like a text array list of every card you want and then compile it to a PDF for you to just load it up on the printer and then get it all printed out. So, proxying's pretty good. So to proxy a list, you need to have a list to begin with. And when you're starting into cEDH, if you don't have any knowledge of where to go, you're kind of left to stumble around with decks that you already have or what you think are powerful cards. But there's already a collated resource out there.
Yes.
I believe it's the Competitive Decks Database, or at least we just call it the DDB.
The DDB, yeah. The Decklist Database.
Decklist Database, yeah. They've got a whole bunch of decks that are in the meta right now, and they're constantly reviewed.
Yes,
whether or not to be kept on there.
Or when new cards get printed, with the release of Orcish Bowmasters and stuff, people are updating the lists in the database to include the new cards to reflect what is still at the power level that we want for cEDH.
Yeah, well, that's at the competitive filtering. You can also filter it to, I think, the Brewer's Corner, which has a lot of jank. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of that section. One of the best things about using the DDB, though, and looking at all these Moxfield lists is the relevant primers, though. You can tell so much and learn so much about the deck and how to pilot it.
And if it doesn't mention Gingerbrute, just close that tab, open a new one.
Primers are a great resource for a new player.
Yes.
For play patterns, how to sequence it, or...
Even learning the combos.
Learning the combos.
There's some ridiculously complicated combos. Obviously, Gitrog is just bonkers and just...
Some Golgari lists get worse with stick figures needing like 20 game actions
and
win.
they're just non-deterministic, like Krakashima. It's
And also how to stay adaptive if like sacrifices come into play, or the plan Bs, plan Cs, or all the way up to plan Zs for some of these primers if they're well enough read. But not every deck list actually has a primer. So I'd suggest that if you are getting to cEDH new, you find a list that has a primer in itself. It's on the competitive section, and that way you'll have your hand held by all the deck creators
all the people that have
primer.
played that deck before you, that have gone through the arduous task of putting in cards, taking other cards out, playing against different cards, knowing what works, what the holes in the deck are, because that's a big one.
Because it's a bit hard when you move from casual into cEDH. You want to bring your pet deck into there.
Yeah,
but then
it doesn't work that well.
It doesn't immediately work.
Phoenix cEDH, terrible idea. Because then you're just relying on
ISO.
It's just ISO Conceptor. That's all it is, and someone gets rid of your ISO and it's gone. It just doesn't work.
It's just more of the thing of you want this first experience to be, you want to be on a level playing field. Right, so you want to take something that already works, and sure, you may not be completely familiar with the list, but you'll be at a level power with the rest of your table.
And I mean, even cards like when I built Yuriko Doomsday, I had to keep referring back to the primer, so that it was okay. What cards am I getting for Doomsday?
All the card draw cards, and
now it's like, okay, I can look at it and go, I want to play Doomsday. What cards are on the field? What do I need to play around? What cards have I got in my hand? And I can figure out a different Doomsday pile for each situation.
But it's funny you mentioned that. It's Yuriko, right?
Yes.
That's a deck you've stuck with for quite some time.
Yes.
Which it leads on to our third tip. When you're first starting, please stick to one deck.
Yes. Once you've found a kind of archetype or a deck type that you like and you enjoy playing, find that commander, build that deck, play it again and again and again. Learn it inside and out. Learn what it does well, what gaps it has, how it plays against other decks in your specific meta, and then from there you can tailor it to how you play. Like, you know what cards you don't enjoy playing or what cards don't go well in your meta, and you can take them out and you can put in cards that are going to help you out.
Do the job.
Yeah. Like, for example, one of the first changes I made was I put in Grafdigger's Cage. Because Yuriko plays through Grafdigger's Cage. Yeah. Winota can't. Winota falls flat on her face under Grafdigger's Cage.
And Urza Polymorph, anything Polymorph.
Even Kinnan, it doesn't fall flat on its face to Grafdigger's Cage, but it is hampered. That is the benefit of choosing one deck and just running with it for as long as it takes to start wrapping your head around your meta. What cards are good, what cards are not quite as good.
The play patterns.
And
even finding new ones. You know, just as you become more familiar with the list, you'll typically see more options that each card provides.
Like your Vadrok list.
Yes. Or even Resculpt, dealing with both artifact and creatures. I would just thought it was just creatures first.
Fun fact, Resculpt can hit artifacts.
Yeah.
Like Grafdigger's Cage.
It clearly says it on the card. Clear as day. The main reason.
Wait, hang on. Reading the card explains the card. Look, Magic is hard.
And some games are harder. You've got to be okay with losing it.
Yes.
Regardless, casual, competitive, you've got to really be okay to draw findings from your losses as well. In casual, there can be some good level of sportsmanship.
There is definitely a saltiness sometimes that comes along with certain play styles. With things like land destruction or hard stacks.
Yes.
You can't play those in casual because that's not within the spirit of playing casual. But in cEDH...
It's in the spirit of me playing.
Yeah, it's no holds barred. You can do whatever you want. If you want to run hard stacks so no one can do anything, like Knowledge Pool and a Rule of Law, go for it. I mean, if you want to run Stasis or Standstill, go for it. You can do that in cEDH. One of the big understandings within the cEDH community is there's no spite plays. If you're going to lose, you don't take out as many of their creatures as you can on the way down because that doesn't increase your chance of winning. It just means that when you go down, you're pulling that other player with you.
Yeah. It's just kind of taking that loss and then within that game, gracefully. But there's some benefits after the game that you can get from that loss.
Yes.
Where you can consider if it was your position in the turn order or
whether you were playing for your seat position. So it's like if you're seat 1, you're more likely to be a little more aggressive, a little more go a little bit more into it instead of if you're player 4, because you're last in priority, you may need to hold up a little more because you may need to be a little more reactive when it comes to the other people are always going to be ahead of you in resources.
Or did you just draw enough attention based on your commander? If it could just be a scary commander that
could be very much so.
Result in that being removed and countered over and over, because if it hits the field, you win the game.
Yep. If you've already played Dockside and you've got 7 or 8 treasures and you're trying to cast your Magda, she is not resolving.
She's not resolving.
Because if she resolves, you win, that's game over. And that's something that you need to be okay with. If you're choosing to play...
Having your commander countered, it's a little bit of a jump to accept and to just be okay with it and understand it. A lot of these casual decks are... It's not that they're dependent on the commander, because there's a bunch of cEDH ones that are as well.
Like Kennen.
It's being okay with you might not always have that within the game, and then also drawing the findings of the game that you can get some insights from the loss itself.
Like, how did you lose? Was it you tried to cast your commander at the wrong time, or before someone's had a massive counter war and everyone stripped their hand of the interaction? Or they resolved and then someone used Darksteel Mutation or Witness Protection and it's like, okay, well now I can't get rid of my commander, they're just sitting there doing nothing and my entire deck falls apart.
But then it's also, from that loss, you then know that, I've made my deck too reliant on my commander. It's a little bit of a glass cannon.
Yep.
I mean,
or do I need to put in Command Beacon because there's too many Dranith effects? So you figure out what the weak points are within your specific meta and you kind of figure out how to play around.
And then it just results in a stronger deck.
Yeah.
Provided you are attentive to why you are losing.
What things are you seeing that is actively hampering you? And then from there you can figure out what to do against it.
There's a little bit of a thought process that I did help out my friends, with their deck list for cEDH, where there'll be some cards that I'm a little bit iffy about that are already within my list or their list, and I'll get them to consider whether or not those cards were something else instead, in a little considering pile. If they were like counter spells or removal, just keeping that in mind, such that when they draw them in the game and they weren't happy about this card or they were iffy about it before, they could confidently say, if that card were instead removal or response, would they be in a better position?
A good example, Alchemist Retrieval. If I draw that Alchemist Retrieval, would I have rathered that was Counterspell? Specifically, Counterspell is not strong enough. That's a bad card. Stuff like that, you can go, okay, I drew this Alchemist Retrieval. It's not doing anything for me now. What would I have rather it been? Or would I have rather it was a draw spell or snap?
But you get those insights from post-game, whether or not it didn't work out in your favour to have it in the card in its current form rather than your optional form that you're raising as a result of this kind of flag exercise. But the most important thing is actually having a community to play with, because without having a community you don't have the games to even lose them. We've found several communities that we've come to meet and know a lot of different people, be it on Discord, shout out the Australian cEDH Discord, and there's been even some little minor ones that can be sourced from LGSs themselves, the Discord communities for them, or even the LGS itself. Walking into stores is pretty important for Magic.
It is. And I mean, you can walk in and say, hey, introduce yourself and say, I'm trying to get into cEDH, or I like playing cEDH, and there may be a few people there that are like, it's something that I've been looking into or would like to try, and you can kind of build your own community from there.
We've certainly built up a little bit of a community in our AJS.
It's come a long way from me moving to here, walking into Guff and being like, I have a cEDH deck, and everyone was like, I don't know. I
mean, I think I had something ready at that point.
I don't know if you did. I know.
I just had a high-powered Oswald.
No, it was before Oswald. It was the Orzhov one.
Extus,
that's it. It started from you and me, and then Mitch came in. And...
Yep, and I recruited a bunch of people.
Yep.
Because that's the right word. There's even some good subreddits for cEDH.
Yep, yeah. I mean, the cEDH subreddit is pretty decent.
It's pretty on the nose.
Yeah. And, from there, it'll probably, if you're looking for games and stuff through Reddit, it'll probably keep linking back to the Discord. But it is a good place to, if you don't know which Discords to go into.
Speaking of which, the Reddit cEDH Discord itself has a whole bunch of spell table games popping off nearly every day.
All the time, yeah.
You might be able to catch us on that, either Matt or myself every now and then.
Yeah, I'm on there every now and again.
Yeah,
I have it when I have days off. I was on there a while back. I was playing with a bunch of Americans, and it was so much fun.
Yeah,
they had no idea what Rocco did, so I was just like, I'll just tutor for Arena Rector. I'm like, okay, off you go, whatever that does. Stuff like that is a good opportunity to play against people and decks that aren't in your exact meta. So you'll get to see new things, try new things, learn how other things work and interact.
A good way to see new things is on YouTube.
Yep,
a whole bunch of
YouTube is
different
great.
channels I think one of our favorites has to be like, play to win.
Play to win.
Oh.
Play to win is fantastic.
Love Cam.
Playing with power as well, they're
Call
another
me back.
good one. The spike feeders have some pretty decent stuff as well.
Yeah.
I think you enjoy the Scry Babies.
Scry Babies every now and then.
Yeah.
They've got some really good content.
There's even our channel, which is up and coming, and we'll be posting more stuff on recently.
One of the biggest cEDH channels out there right now.
So yeah, that's our 5 tips.
Those are some good 5 tips
Those
to
are.
like begin cEDH. We'll have a
Let's
bunch
just
of
do a
other-
quick recap, shall we? So we've got tip number 1, proxying. It is going to be your best friend
proxy.
going into a format like cEDH.
Tip number 2, use the database.
Yep.
Very important starting
Very
place.
important. The search function is really good. So if you want specific cards or for a specific commander, the search function will find you those decks.
Hey, I'll be honest, even like color identity could be a good one to pick on because like with you playing Yuriko all a bunch, we need to find the exact opposite for that.
Yep. So we just went, okay, database, Naya, what are the options? Tip number 3.
Be okay with losing.
No spike plays.
Nah. Tip 4.
Stick to that one deck. Learn that deck inside and out. The 5th tip of just finding a really good community.
Yeah.
Whether that be in person or online.
Find some people to play with.
Thanks for joining us on this delve into 5 tips for cEDH, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Can't wait to share more tips with you and even, more little findings. And
Yeah.
Have a good one.
See ya.